Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Second hour, we're still focusing on Kenya Kwanza administration 3 years on. In terms of the economy, we're focusing on the foreign policy, and I do still have here Alenga Trosta, the policy advisor, Sami Meli, a political analyst, and all the way from New York City, Dr. Mark Matuga is joining us via Zoom. Let me go back to Alenga. We were talking earlier about, before I cut you short, we went for the commercial break. We're talking about the unfairness when it comes to the financial structures that African leaders have been complaining about, and the cost these African governments have to pay in terms of taking in those financial aids.
Yeah, it's very clear that Africa, not only Kenya, but many countries in Africa have had to bear the brunt of being dependent on foreign aid, being dependent on foreign support. And it's a high time that maybe African countries should rally together and create their own financial institutions, strengthen even the Africa Development Bank so that it's able to step in into the gap that World Bank and the IMF have been feeling. Because it's very possible, because I look at the whole of the African continent, then I imagine if they strengthen their own institution to fund Africa, self-generated capital from Africa to fund African states and African programs, it's very much possible. But the problem is we have been here for long enough and we have been conditioned to believe that the solution will always come from outside. But then I think with the emergence of leaders who can be able to speak, and you've seen across the African globe in the last few years, we've had presidents who can now be able to speak even on that international fora. They can be able to speak without fear and actually demystify the shortcomings of these funding platforms. Remember in the international forum where our president spoke vehemently on the unfairness of the international funding schemes, and he said that they do not stand for Africa and they do not represent the feelings of Africans, and they seek to exploit more of the Africans and to put them in a tight corner where their conditionalities determine the path for Africa. It determines the leadership, it determines the governance structures, and it determines even the education systems. You have seen a lot of countries have had to change their educational systems to fit what World Bank wants. They have had to re-engineer their foreign relations to fit what the EU wants and many other international blocks. So I think it's an awakening moment for Africa, and specifically even for us as Kenyans. For once we have a president who has been able to speak openly about those injustices in the world financial sector, and maybe that is a good starting point. And going forward, maybe it will force us to get into more stable discussions, more Afrocentric discussions that seek to elevate the place of Africa in multilateralism.
And Sami, given that Alenga is talking about some of those financial aid, you witnessed what President Donald Trump did when it comes to the US aid, and the recent report you saw yesterday when it comes to food deficiency within some parts, including 15 counties that are within the ASAL areas that are currently suffering from food deficiency, where USAID had breached that particular gap. Not only USAID, but the Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations. So in terms of dependency, have we relied too much on these aids?
You see, I put Africa in a situation whereby this is a rich kid begging in his own party for drinks and food. Africa is a rich continent. It's only that our leadership in Africa perhaps have allowed smugglers, thieves to steal our resources, and then we go beg for the proceeds of the same resources. If we were to work, for example, strengthen African Development Bank and make sure that African Development Bank becomes our main lending agency, we can easily walk out of IMF and World Bank, because you cannot be given conditions, for example, of retrenchment in a country where 15 million young people have no jobs. So a condition like that, how do you meet it? You are creating so that you get, for example, let's say 100 billion, and you are told to retrench 10,000. That is a loss to the country. And therefore, we should think outside the box and even think without the box that is boxing us, called Africa, at we are poor. That thing, the poverty levels. If you were to walk, I presume that Alenga here and yourself have gone to these foreign nations, and you have seen even them, they have the slums, but they don't expose that. They hide it. We have people who have gone abroad and thinking that they have got green pastures, only to find themselves in the streets, having left a country like Kenya, where you can walk to a neighbor and eat and come back. Try that in the US. They will serve the food minus you, because you never said you are coming. And therefore, the ADB should be strengthened. These unfair rules should be rejected. Because there was a time our president was asking the other leaders, the African leaders, we work together. We don't go into a meeting having been called and lectured. Unfortunately, we are backtracked. We are backtracked on those, and that is why I'm saying African leaders should walk the talk and not talk the walk. Africans shouldn't beg at all. The other countries, for example, the colonial masters that have developed, the first world countries, they are like a team that played during the halftime when the rest were in the bush. Africans were in the bush that time, and they played with our resources. They took them and they put it into good use. And therefore, what we have, the little we have left, can be guarded well. For example, the other day, the president with his team made sure that our coffee got the best prices. And that's why coffee farmers rose, the income from a kilogram of coffee rose from 50 shillings to 150. You can see that is now the way forward. We should think of producing finished products rather than raw materials. We can encourage, for example, if the chips that are used to manufacture mobile phones come from here in Kenya, I realized they discovered the other day, why should we export our oil as crude? Yet we can process it and even sell it to the local, locally. You saw the lorries from Turkana transporting, and we don't know where that oil went at the end of the day. So we have a problem with our leadership ourselves. The shepherd who's taking care of the flock, especially in Africa, is the one eating the flock, and at the end of the day blaming the hyena. We should change the rhetoric that we have. We should change the leadership that we have, and make sure that the leadership walks the talk so that we move out of this. For example, the other day the president made Kenya visa-free, a visa-free country for Africans. And you have seen the influx of Africans. I am just imagining how easily it would have looked like if we didn't have those foreigners who have come to invest here. Yes. If we go to your local shopping center, where the locals are the ones, they are still in the old structures. But when we encourage even immigration, the US has been built by immigrants. Dubai has been built by immigrants. It is not the leadership in Dubai. The leadership in Dubai is just allowed. And that is how we will come out of this poverty. If we expect ourselves, we shall just stay here complaining 20 years, 30 years coming. Let's allow foreign investors to come. And sometimes don't put too much conditions. Because if this person will come and employ Kenya, the only condition is 70% Kenyans, or even say 90%. So the top tier should have a mixture of Kenyans and foreigners, so that at the end of the day, the investment that has come benefits the locals. But when we put so many barriers to investors, we will not get investment coming here. You have seen some countries, for example, if you fly to Hong Kong, you go visa-free. But going into the entire China, you need a visa. So, and that's why you see Hong Kong growing that much. So, Kenya even should identify a county, for example, that is visa-free, where if investors would come in, they would come do business there, visa-free. And at the end of the day, we benefit. We can even say whatever is coming comes free, but what leaves is what we tax. And at the end of the day, we will grow this country. But if we continue with the old ways, with the old monkeys, with the same old forest. We will not move anywhere. And that is why sometimes I see the president taking hard stance, hard decision, and you see us complaining because we are not used to it. You can see the e-procurement system. Those people who are used to giving tenders under the table are not ready for transparency. They don't want, because if you look at the e-procurement system, you will see all the registered companies, the suppliers. There's a list. The other day I was seeing there are about 9,000 at the moment which are registered. They are all there. And the ones that have come to the front desk are the ones that have been vetted and prove that they have the right documents to come forward. You will see the tenders in every ministry. You would see who won, who tendered, why they didn't. Even evaluation will be done online. It will reduce a lot of paperwork, interaction, and at the end of the day, the way e-citizen has worked, the way we used to queue in Nyayo House for passports and ID and the rest, e-citizen has made it easier. Even though this one also is coming to remove some form of corruption, at the end of the day, you see, there is no need of selling this pen, which is 10 shillings, to the government at 1,000 shillings. It doesn't make sense. Therefore, with the new changes, we will be able to get value for money. And this money that we borrow, for example, from the IMF, should give us value for it, so that by the time we are repaying the taxes or repaying the loans, we are able to see what it has done. But if we keep on doing the old way, money is borrowed, it disappears. Eurobond is floated, it comes in, it disappears, and nobody has seen it. At the end of the day, we are left with loans to repay for things we didn't see or things that were never delivered. And that is why, if we accept to bite the bullet and do due diligence, Kenya will move to another place. And sometimes it takes the firstborn or even the lastborn or the middleborn to show the way. And of late, Kenya is showing the way to the African countries. And we should applaud, even though we should challenge sometimes our leadership does wrong things, we should applaud the good things that they do.
Okay.
Thank you.
And of course, Doc, as we finalize on Kenya Kwanza's foreign policy, the president will be attending that 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly UNGA in New York, and of course that is set to run from the 9th to the 29th of September, with the general debate expected to run from 23rd to 27th. That will be the end of this particular month. It will be very interesting to see how our president will be interacting with President Donald Trump, especially when it comes to Kenya's diplomatic influence and the country facing east. So how intricate will those discussions be?
I think I basically just heard the last part of your question, how intricate the conversations of the possible meetings of President Ruto and the President of the U.S., if that happens, how that might be. Is that the question you asked me?
Yes, yes, Doc.
As a country, we consider ourselves as a sovereign nation, and on the platform of the UN, of UNGA, for the most part, we still see ourselves as equals with other countries. However, it needs to be clear to all of us that the United States is the United States, and of course a statement like that, if you tell a Kenyan, would understand what that actually means. To the best of my knowledge as yet, and I don't think that it would be fair for me to actually make this comment, but to the best of my knowledge, I'm not sure if any of those meetings, bilateral meetings between President Ruto and President Trump has been planned. And in any case, it would still not be public knowledge as yet. But knowing President Trump, given his posture what he thinks about Africa and about Kenya. And by the way, remember that he's just declined from attending the G20 in South Africa. That already tells you his general opinion about Africa. But I think that should that meeting materialize, definitely it will be a huge benefit for Kenya. President Ruto is a very smart guy in terms of communication. So if he goes to any of such meetings, definitely you can be certain that Kenya will come out very positively in that conversation with the President Trump. But let's just agree and know and confirm that President Trump is very, very unpredictable. I can say that confidently. I don't think I'm going to be kicked out of this country in the next 2 minutes just because I've said that President Trump is unpredictable. That is known. And so any president going to actually have a meeting with him must be, first of all, smart and actually be able to know what to say, actually to be able to come out positive. I think one of the major conversations going on now is the conversation around tariffs. I don't think there's any other major issue between the U.S. and Kenya as we speak. And obviously, President Trump himself would not want to really interfere with the ongoing and the growing relationship between the U.S. and Kenya. But the only question that I throw out there is the unpredictable nature of President Trump. But it gives me comfort that should that meeting happen, we have one of the best communicators in President Ruto. And Kenya will come out positively. As a matter of fact, we might end up with a host of other good interventions from the U.S. To Kenya should that meeting happen. I suspect that if that meeting doesn't happen, the meeting between President Ruto and President Trump, if that meeting that has happened, at minimum, President Ruto, given his aggressive nature, might still secure a meeting with the Secretary of State, that is Marco Rubio, which still would be definitely a good thing. I want to remain positive about this visit, about the president coming to New York for UNGA, and I want to remain positive about his his meetings on the sidelines, the bilaterals. I know that the president has already talked about the possible meetings with the tech giants to see how the tech giants, the likes of Google, Microsoft, Intel, Meta, and such, can actually improve investments in Kenya and also create a much better tech environment for the benefit of Kenyans who are tech savvy, huge tech consumers, and I think one of the leading African countries in terms of technology. So having that conversation from a tech growth point of view is definitely good. Obviously, the president will have, and we will be seeing many times on social media the bilateral and sideline meetings that he will be having. But I think, like you asked me, Abiaziz, the really most watched meeting will be if we'll be able to actually pull off a meeting with President Trump. Mm-hmm. But I'm super optimistic in the context that the outcome of that meeting will definitely be positive, regardless of the unpredictable nature of President Trump.
Indeed, it is a meeting that we'll be keeping an eye on if it will happen, and of course the general debate that will be happening at UNGA from the 23rd to the 27th, where the world leaders will be converging. Also keeping a close eye on the current administration when it comes to bilateral and multilateral talks that will be holding during that particular assembly. Now, let's bring it closer to home. Aside from the foreign policy of Kenya Kwanza administration, we want to look at the governance and accountability, living in the era of transparency and accountability, with the populace demanding the same, not only from their leaders but the various institutions tasked with ensuring there is transparency and accountability, especially when it comes to their finances. And let me start with you, Meli. In terms of how corruption has been dealt with, you earlier talked about the e-procurement system. How has the administration addressed this particular issue?
If they were to address corruption, I know the Constitution guarantees the EACC the autonomy of independence from interference by other government agencies, including the president himself, though they must be accountable to Kenyans. There has been very little activity, especially on EACC. We see corruption every day. You go to the CBD right now, you'll see a police officer picking 150 shilling note. You see the county of Askaris doing the same. It's like it has become part of our nature as Kenyans. You are stopped by a police officer, you are already folding a 50 shilling note or 100. It's like he has demanded for it. And remember, there's a willing giver and a willing taker. And none of them is taking responsibility for it when questioned. And therefore, I think it is a collective responsibility as Kenyans that we should fight corruptions together, not EACC alone. You remember the multitask agency that was established by the president. Then somebody goes to court, challenges it, it has been stopped. And therefore, corruption fights back, especially when it is being fought from all quarters. We need a multi-citizenry approach, and not even an agency alone, for us all to fight corruption. Because if we were paying what we pay through corruption to KRA, perhaps our economy would be the biggest in Africa. There is a lot of corruption in recruitment. For example, the National Police Service very soon will be doing recruitment, and you will see allegations of corruptions here and there. And I think we should fight it as something that denies the rightful person the rightful position in the country. This is not the war the president should do alone. Our laws are also a challenge, because we have seen people even who have been jailed for corruption going around the corridors of justice and getting to be released. I don't want to mention names. Elenga might be able to mention, because perhaps some of them come from his constituency. And this thing called corruption is big, and if not fought by all Kenyans, it will consume us someday, if not very soon. Corruption, people see it as just exchange of money. Corruption is even getting favors at workplace. That is corruption. Corruption is even introduced at home, where you send a child to the shop and then you entice them with 10 shillings for a lollipop. You see, you have begun the culture of corruption. And it boils up at the end of the day that even to get the most critical services in the government, for example, in the justice system, you find that the person who was seeking justice gets even more injustice in the judiciary. You go again the same way happening all over. So even the other day, I would see, for example, I know Kenyans will throw stones, especially on Harambee Stars. When there were millions, they were scoring. When the president said nothing, they were beaten like no one's business. So I think corruption is in our blood.
So how can we are that corruption, and they were being given those monies?
Now, no, the question is, was it a budgeted thing? Was it in the budget? And why? The Malkia strikers were never given anything, yet even they won a continental cup. You can see. So the favoritism in the things that we do in this country. At the end of the day, you pick this, you do an injustice on this side, then on the other side, a relative of yours is done an injustice, or even a sibling, or even your own offspring on the other side. So corruption, we need to accept first that we are corrupt. That is the first step. We have to accept that we are corrupt. The second step is now, how do we get out of this thing? For example, when we digitalize even the way traffic issues are done. The other day, there were traffic cameras on the roads. You can easily be spotted for overspeeding. At the end of the day, if a message is sent to you, you either pay a fine or appear in court. That will easily cut down on the corruption issues that we have. Another thing is digital. Actually, we still have at digital, reducing the human interaction. Reducing the human interaction will help us, because whenever we interact more, the more we are we end up exchanging some favors here and there. And that is when you saw the government coming up, digitalizing government services. It reduced the corruption, especially, for example, the most famous house where to get a passport, you had to go through corners here and there. Now it's straightforward. You know, in 1-2 weeks, you have your passport. If it is ID cards, you do the same thing and you get it. If it is company search, you are able to do online and you get it without corrupting anyone. But the more the humans interact, for example, even the court sessions should be more of digitalized, because even the magistrate can continue with cases even at a freer time and more in a more relaxed environment, and at the end of the day, speed up the justice, the wheels of justice. Other government approaches, for example, we should have stringent laws. Though the parliament, sometimes this parliament comes up with these laws, then the next one reverses them, then the courts challenges them, and then they are suspended here and there. We need to accept first that we need to deal with this thing. Because, and most of the time, even as we go for election, I'm sure Alenga has met the young men in the village. You can't speak to them without giving something. Kina mama wanasema tuachie ya macho. At the end of the day, that is corruption. Because if they want me to serve them, for example, for you to run for a member of parliament, let me take an example of my county, you have to spend not less than 30 million. If you spend 30 million and you come earn a salary of 800K, how many years do you need to recover your money? That makes the member of parliament corrupt. So if you want, for example, a leader like Alenga to come and represent you, please give him your ears, let him sell the manifesto he has, and give him the seat free of charge. So that tomorrow, if he goes into your basket to get your resources to eat, you tell him, no. We gave you this thing for free, and therefore work for us for free. And therefore, if it is 500,000 shillings we have given you as a salary, it should be enough. At the same time, we should also, the government should be able to control some, the taxes that they pass. Some taxes are so stringent to the extent that the disposable income somebody is left with. For example, if you're earning 500,000, you realize this person goes home with 300 or even 250. Because there are so many things that have been reduced here. And this person has to look for other ways to maintain the lifestyle. I welcome, for example, the affordable housing project. You know, there are people who have not, or you are going there, we'll go there. Okay.
Let's finish this issue of accountability first. Alenga, when it comes to our governance structures and accountability measures that have been put in place, not only by the administration, but the agencies who are tasked with dealing with corruption, how has it affected our structures itself?
I think Kenya has a robust platform with which to deal with corruption issues. However, we have not had the goodwill from the various governments to be able to empower these institutions and agencies to be able to monitor corruption and also prosecute corruption. What we have seen over time is regimes using those agencies to punish those whom they are not in good books with. And everything is left for the public to see, because Kenya right now, we are at an extremely informational age where when you do something, people can read through and see this thing was inspired by this, and the reason for this decision was this. So when Kenyans see that a certain leader is being pursued, basically because of what they said on TV 2 days ago about the administration, they are able to see where that corruption case is coming from. When a leader is genuinely brought into the courts of law for offenses of corruption that they have committed, the citizens are able to see this was a genuine matter being brought into the courts. So what I think, in my view, would help us to eradicate corruption in this country is ensuring that these agencies that have the mandate to fight corruption, number one, the selection of the people who head them is done in an open manner, a fair manner, and not maybe we know this person is a friend of so-and-so, and therefore from this relationship, that's how they became the chair, that's how this one became the vice chair. So already the purpose is defeated when appointments to these offices generate from prior relationships that those office bearers have with the people in the administration. That's step one. So that people will see this person applied, they were shortlisted, and they were selected, based on merit. Number two, these agencies must be given power and freedom to investigate crimes of corruption, to develop files on individuals, and lastly, to move to court and prosecute. They should be given prosecutorial powers to stand in the dock and prosecute their case for the interest of the public without being influenced by certain points. So when that happens, therefore, then it becomes impossible for any other person to come in and infiltrate in their processes for corruption mitigation. So for me, I think the path is very clear from the onset, that's what we need to do. And when we do that, then corruption will cease to manifest itself blatantly as it is manifesting today. Also, and a footnote to that would be, if someone has a criminal case or a case of corruption in the courts and they are found to be guilty, then jailing them is not enough, but the government should have structures, or these entities should have structures to recoup what that person stole so that it comes back to the public coffers, and then they serve a jail term so that there is restitution for what they have done. If we demonstrate that for 1, 2, 3 people, it will serve as a warning to the entire population. But as it were, today people know that in this country, if you steal, you only need to steal enough to stash for yourself and to fight through the corruption cases if they ever rise against you. So people steal while prepared. And that is why we have jeopardized the interest of the nation based on interest of individuals who want to enrich themselves through positions that they have been given. When we look at corruption, we should never single out the small fishes and tend to prosecute those ones so that we can demonstrate that we are fighting corruption. Time and again, you see in the newspapers or the media photos of police officers that have been arrested while getting a bribe of 20,000 or getting a bribe of 50,000, then they are hounded and thrown into jail and their pictures are splashed over the internet. Well, that's a good place to start from, but once these small fishes are the ones that face the brunt, while we continue to have people in serious offices that are stealing massive amounts of money from this nation, jeopardizing our healthcare to our people, jeopardizing education to our children, jeopardizing employment opportunities for our young people, then it calls us as a nation to think deeper about this element of corruption. We have reached a place where I think we have mainstreamed corruption in our day-to-day life, even just as my brother Meli says. We have, if you find somebody complaining about corruption, it is that person that has not found a chance to be part of the corruption. That is the person that will be castigating corruption at the top of their voice. But every Kenyan is potentially waiting for an opportunity where they can dive in. So I think also away from governance structures and constitutional bodies being the ones we look at in terms of for purposes of fighting corruption, I think we must also come to a place where it becomes a societal issue that we must fight for corruption. Let's say, for instance, if we have a governor whom we know in this county, our total disbursements are this much. For the last 5 years, the governor has been in office. But when we look through the county, we cannot see a project where this money seems to have sunk in. Then we have a responsibility as people in that county to ask that governor, to bring him to account. We don't have to wait for EACC to come and dramatically arrest the governor. We can actually question that governor. If we have an MP, and all these resources are available. If you go to the internet, you'll see how much has been disbursed to you in terms of CDF. Like for my constituency, Vihiga, for the last 8 years, the current MP has been in office. We've been given a disbursement of 1.18 billion. So it is the responsibility of the people of Vihiga constituency to come to cross-check that disbursement with the realities on the ground and figure out, does this ground look like it has taken in 1.18 billion, or there is a problem somewhere? If they feel there's a problem somewhere, then they can ask this MP, man, we have received this much, but when we look around, we don't see a single project that maybe could have even taken 50 million. We don't see a single project that we can stand on and say, this one, they must have spent about 20 million. So what is the accountability for this? So we should not wait for state agencies to come in and dramatically arrest people overnight, and then the next day they are in court, then the third day that story has been forgotten. As citizens, we have a responsibility to bring accountability of corruption and the leaders. These leaders come from our communities. They live amongst us. We know when they entered office how much they had. We know what they have today, and we can actually ask them for accountability for all this wealth that they have accumulated in a period of 5 years, 2 years, 1 year into office. I mean, so if these questions start coming from the citizens, who are the real owners of the coffers, then our leaders will start exercising a level of respect for the public funds, respect for this resources of that they hold in trust for the public, and respect for the citizens that prop them into power.
And let me rope you in, Doc, when it comes to implementing and dealing with this particular vice, and in terms of even the country that you're in currently, given that you're in New York, how has that country dealt with corruption that Kenyans, especially our administration, can borrow from in tackling this vice?
Abdiaziz, I want to agree with everything that Meli has said and everything that Lenga has said about issues corruption. And even before I touch on the US, I want to also say that we have talked about corruption in our country and in Africa to a point whereby it is now a sexy word. It doesn't even scare us when we mention corruption. I mean, I think that we need to actually reconfigure it and call it something else. Whether we want to call it stealing or robbery, those are some of the words that still cause our national conscience and individual conscience to actually stop and think. But just saying corruption is these days a very smooth word that we use. I want to answer your question by saying that in the context of corruption, it can only be reduced. It is a phenomenon that is literally in every country. It just varies the levels, and that's why we have laws. So even the U.S., you still encounter elements of issues of corruption, one way or the other. It's only that here, you know, because of the kind of because of the national conscience, which I think is also important. And that is part of what Nelly mentioned earlier, and I fully agree with him, that as a people, it starts with us. Because you can already tell that we're looking at the issue of corruption as a distant thing that is basically happening or being performed by other people, or being executed by other people, maybe our leaders. But it starts with us. I can tell you, Aziz, that just in the last, I think, 3 days or 1 week, I don't know if I have not seen, but I just saw in the social media that NPS is planning to recruit policemen.
Yes.
Just because I'm a businessman in the IT sector, but just because of my profile, I get a lot of requests. I already have a lot of requests, a lot of SMSs asking me to work with the president or the leaders to actually get certain positions, a certain number of people to actually be employed. If that wasn't viewed as corruption, I don't know what is, because I am expected, and there's a lot of pressure on me now from my community, from my family, to ensure that over and above the number of policemen that are supposed to be employed from my ward or from my district or sub-county, which is Mfangano or Suba West, I'm expected to ensure that I make arrangements for the employment of so-and-so's son, so-and-so's daughter, so-and-so's son, so-and-so's daughter. And right now I have requests that is going almost like the number 30. So where am I going to actually get this? And I'm under a lot of pressure by my own community. So you can see how it actually impacts everybody. So we should not just be looking at the elected leaders. We should not just be looking at those who are in government. Here in the US, to actually start a conversation around, or even look at the possibility of how a policeman, like let's say here in New York, NYPD, there would be no relative, there would be no pressure that you actually need to deploy to get your son or your daughter employed at, as a police officer to be a member of NYPD. There's absolutely none. It's so transparent. You go online, you apply, you are interviewed. If you qualify, you are employed. But even to go around and trying to look for the chief of police, the chief of NYPD to actually pay so that X number of people are employed, it does not exist. And even that opportunity alone. And if you are, of course, there are people who even attempt. When you make that attempt, you will definitely be arrested and prosecuted mercilessly, without favor, one way or the other. So it is about our individual citizens who actually need to come to the conscious around issues robbery, around issues stealing, or around issues corruption. I don't see, or even when we're coming through immigration, you show up to the immigration officer, you give your passport, and you are handled based on the documentation that you provided and what the law really says. There is no favors that you will find at the immigration desk. So it starts with, I think, you can remember, I think it was in 2022. No, not 2022, in 2002, when the new government took over, Kibaki's government, there was a national conscience whereby even as a citizen would step out of a matatu and arrest a police officer for taking a bribe.
Okay.
That only lasted about 3 months. If we could actually sustain that national conscience at that national level, whereby we know that this is bad, that is when we'll actually start reducing corruption. And that is how, so that those who are younger people who are growing into adulthood to actually participate actively in the economy know that there are laws, there are procedures that you actually have to follow. On the roads, you are in traffic, and before you know it, there's been like 10 cars that have gone past you just on the other side, driving on the wrong side of the road. And then basically they create a clog.
Okay, Doc.
If that is not corruption, I don't know what is.
Okay.
So we end up blaming, basically bottling corruption into just a small bottle of money exchanging hands. But we are forgetting that actually our cumulative behavior contributes to our low quality of life because we are losing a lot, and our national conscience robs us of what we actually would have benefited.
Okay, Doc.
If you talk of numbers, I'll close with. If you talk of numbers, and I've shared these numbers very strongly even on this on this show, whereby President Uhuru once said that as a country, and him also at the time being a consumer of raw evidence, like President Ruto, he said that as a country we lose 2 billion shillings every single day. If you do that math, in a year we lose 720 billion, obviously close to $1 trillion. And if you just basically took that money, just the money that we're losing alone, forget about whatever goes in good use. Just take what we're losing and divide it to about 1,400 wards per year. That would be 500,000 or 514 million Kenya shilling. So imagine 500 million shillings every year coming to a ward. If that would not help address issues, health would not address issues, education would not address issues, economy would not address issues of trade, would not address issues, infrastructure, cross-border. If that money alone, the money that we're losing, if that money alone came to a ward,
okay, Doc.
See the level of transformation.
Doc, unfortunately, we're running out of time. We're running out of time, Doc, if you can hear me. Daktari, if you can hear me, we are running out of time. I want to get closing remarks from all of you, given that I need to pave way for my colleague, that is Khalid Abdullahi for Kurunzi Mashinani. Just 30 seconds, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Meli. 30 seconds. Sum up the performance of Kenya Kwanza administration for the last 3 years. In 30 seconds, please.
The Kenya Kwanza administration has made both achievements and failures. For example, the economic stability. They have made sure that Kenya has left the debt distress that we were. The affordable housing that is ongoing. We have the Hustler Fund disbursement of up to 54.9 billion. The healthcare, the SHA is now, at least it's now working.
Okay.
digital transformation, jobs, especially for those young men who have gone abroad to work and those working in affordable housing. There are quite a number of things that they have done, but they also have quite a number of failures that they have. Yes.
Alenga, 30 seconds, please. We're running out of time.
I think in my view, the administration of Kenya Kwanza has started on very important things that we hope can be improved with time. That is the new healthcare system, that is the university funding model, the housing scheme. These are things that if sharpened properly and we ensure that they work to meet the intended purpose, they are very, very interesting things that could actually transform the country. However, where I feel the Kenya Kwanza administration needs to work harder is on foreign investment to market Kenya outside there as an investment destination, to streamline our tax regime so that it favors new businesses coming up, and also to just provide incentives for people who want to invest into Kenya as a strong and powerful marketing hub in East Africa. If that is done, then I think the next dispensation would be a very good, easy ride for all Kenyans.
Okay, thank you so much. That is Alenga Trostad, a policy advisor, Sami Meli, a political analyst, and of course joining us all the way from New York via Zoom was Dr. Mark Matunge, a senior political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for making time for us on this particular program. Of course, the discussion continues, especially what the administration has been able to achieve in various sectors, including education and health. That concludes our debate this morning. Do not go too far. My colleague, that is Khalid Abdullahi, is up next with Kurunzi Mashinani and the latest stories that are currently making the headlines at this hour. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim, and of course do join us in our subsequent bulletins.